The morning sun barely peers through the thick clouds hanging over Reagan National Airport as Sergeant First Class Marcus Thompson adjusted his pristine white gloves one final time. For 3 years, he had stood watch at the tomb of the unknown soldier, maintaining the sacred vigil that never ceased, rain or shine. Today marked a different kind of duty, one that weighed heavier on his heart than any 21-hour shift at Arlington National Cemetery. Marcus stood beside a flag-draped casket in the cargo hold of the aircraft, his hand resting gently on the polished wood. Inside lay Private First Class Elena Rodriguez, just 22 years old, returning home from Afghanistan. She had saved 6 members of her unit during an ambush, throwing herself on an explosive device to shield them. Her sacrifice earned her the Medal of Honor, though she would never wear it. The plane touched down with unusual gentleness, as if even the aircraft understood the precious cargo it carried. Marcus had volunteered for this escort duty without hesitation. Though tomb guards rarely left their post for such assignments, Elena's story had touched something deep within the brotherhood of the 3rd Infantry Regiment. Her grandfather had served in the Old Guard decades ago, making her family part of their extended military family. As the cargo doors opened, Marcus straightened his back even further, if such a thing were possible. Every button on his army dress blues gleamed like miniature suns. His shoes reflected the tarmac like black mirrors. The Tomb Guard badge over his heart caught the light, a silent testament to the standard of perfection he maintained. Ground crew members stopped their work, removing their caps as they recognized what was happening. The Honor Guard detail moved with practiced precision, transferring Elena's casket from the plane to the waiting hearse. Marcus never left her side, his white-gloved hand maintaining contact with the flag. Airport workers formed an impromptu line, heads bowed in respect. Some pressed hands to their hearts. Others saluted, though they had never worn a uniform. Inside the terminal, something extraordinary began to unfold. Word spread quickly through the airport staff about the fallen hero's arrival. Gate agents whispered to each other, and the information rippled through the concourse like waves on still water. Passengers waiting for flights noticed the unusual hushed atmosphere, the way airport employees kept glancing toward the windows overlooking the tarmac. Marcus entered through a side door, expecting to move quickly through the terminal to where Elena's family waited. Protocol dictated efficiency, minimal disruption to civilian operations. But as he stepped into the main concourse, flanked by the Honor Guard detail, he encountered something that stopped him in his tracks. A Transportation Security Administration officer, a man in his 50s with graying hair and weathered hands, stood directly in their path. For a moment, Marcus tensed. Interruptions during such sacred duties were not just inconvenient. They were deeply inappropriate. The TSA officer's eyes glistened with unshed tears as he raised his hand. "Sergeant," the officer said, his voice thick with emotion, "I'm Vietnam, 71 to 73. Lost too many brothers who came home like this. Would you allow us a moment?" Before Marcus could respond, the officer turned and called out in a voice that carried through the suddenly silent terminal. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? We have a fallen hero passing through." Private First Class Elena Rodriguez gave her life, saving her fellow soldiers in Afghanistan. If you would join us in a moment of respect. The transformation was instantaneous and profound. Throughout the terminal, people stopped mid-stride. Businessmen set down their phones. Families gathered their children close. Airport employees emerged from shops and restaurants. A pilot in full uniform appeared at a gate door, followed by his entire crew. One by one, they began to line the concourse. Janitors stood beside executives. A group of Girl Scouts on their way to camp formed a perfectly straight line, their small hands over their hearts. An elderly woman in a wheelchair insisted on being helped to stand, leaning heavily on her walker, but determined to show respect. Marcus felt his throat tighten as he began the slow, measured walk through this spontaneous corridor of honor. Each step echoed in the unusual quiet. His training had prepared him for many things, but not for this outpouring of gratitude from ordinary Americans who understood the weight of sacrifice. As they moved forward, more people joined. A businessman loosened his tie and stood at attention, tears streaming down his face. "My son," he whispered to no one in particular. "Same age, still in Iraq." A mother holding a baby shifted the child to one arm so she could salute with the other. The baby, sensing the solemnity, remained remarkably quiet. Airline employees abandoned their posts momentarily. The woman at the coffee shop stepped out, still wearing her apron. Maintenance workers in coveralls formed up alongside pilots in pristine uniforms. There was no distinction of rank or status here, only Americans honoring one of their own. Near the middle of the terminal, a group of Marines in dress blues materialized. They had been traveling through, heading to various assignments, when word reached them. Without hesitation, they formed an honor line, their white-gloved hands snapping to perfect salutes as Marcus approached. Their presence added military precision to the civilian tribute, a bridge between the two worlds Elena had died defending. An elderly veteran in a Korean War veteran's cap struggled to maintain his salute, his arms shaking with age and emotion. A younger man, perhaps his grandson, stood beside him, supporting his elbow, allowing the old warrior his moment of respect. 3 generations of service and sacrifice acknowledged in silent communion. Marcus noticed airport security cameras turning to record the moment. But this wasn't about publicity or social media. This was about something deeper, more fundamental. This was about a nation remembering why freedom carried such a precious price. As they neared the exit where Elena's family waited, the crowd grew even larger. Airport staff had quietly held flights, allowing passengers to participate in this impromptu memorial. Gate agents stood at their podiums, hands over hearts. Baggage handlers had emerged from below, forming ranks along the windows. A small girl, perhaps 6 years old, broke from her mother's grasp and stepped forward. In her hand, she clutched a small American flag, the kind given out at 4th of July parades. She looked up at Marcus with wide, solemn eyes. "For the soldier lady," she said simply, holding out the flag. Marcus paused, looking down at the child. In all his years of perfect discipline, of maintaining the stone-faced demeanor required of a tomb guard, he had never felt his composure tested like this. He knelt, bringing himself to the child's level, and accepted the small flag with the same reverence he would show receiving the colors at Arlington. "She would have loved this," he told the child softly. "Thank you." The little girl nodded solemnly and stepped back to her mother, who swept her up in a tearful embrace. Marcus tucked the small flag carefully into his pocket, a precious gift to be placed with Elena's personal effects. As they finally reached the doors leading to where the family waited, Marcus turned back to look at the assembled crowd. Hundreds of people filled the concourse, all standing in silent tribute. The airport had effectively shut down for these few minutes, commerce and travel yielding to something more important. The TSA officer who had started it all stepped forward once more. "Sergeant, we've held her family in our conference room. They know you're here, but we wanted—" He paused, struggling for words. "We wanted you to know that she doesn't pass through here unnoticed. None of them do. We remember. We always remember." Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice. He gave a slow, deliberate salute to the assembled crowd, holding it for a full 3 seconds. As one, every veteran in the crowd returned it. Others placed hands over hearts or bowed their heads. Behind a conference room door, Elena's mother, Maria Rodriguez, waited with her husband Carlos and Elena's younger siblings. They had been preparing for this moment since the notification officers arrived at their door 5 days ago. But nothing truly prepares a parent for the return of their child in a flag-draped casket. Maria had insisted on meeting the escort at the airport rather than the funeral home. She wanted to be there the moment Elena returned to American soil to begin the final journey home. She clutched Elena's favorite childhood teddy bear, the one she had secretly packed in her daughter's deployment bag for good luck. When Marcus entered, still bearing the weight of what had just occurred in the terminal, Maria saw something in his eyes that gave her an unexpected moment of comfort. This wasn't just duty for him. This was personal. This was sacred. "Mrs. Rodriguez," Marcus began, his voice steady despite the emotion of the day. I've had the honor of escorting Elena home. The entire airport, they all stopped to honor her. She did not come home unnoticed. Carlos Rodriguez, a quiet man who had worked construction all his life to give his children better opportunities, stepped forward. His calloused hands shook as he extended them to Marcus. Was she alone? It was the question every parent asked. The fear that their child had died alone, afraid, far from home. Marcus took the man's hands in his white-gloved ones. Sir, she was surrounded by the soldiers she saved. They were with her every second. They told me. Marcus paused, choosing his words carefully. They told me she was smiling. She knew what she had done. She knew they would live because of her choice. Elena's younger brother, Miguel, just 17 and planning to enlist himself after graduation, stood rigidly, trying to be strong. Her sister, Sophia, only 14, clung to their mother, tears streaming silently down her face. Marcus reached into his pocket and drew out the small flag the little girl had given him. A child in the terminal wanted Elena to have this. She said it was for the soldier lady. I thought you might want to keep it. Maria took the small flag with trembling hands, pressing it to her heart. Such a simple gesture from a stranger's child, yet it meant everything. It meant Elena's sacrifice would be remembered beyond official ceremonies and military honors. It would live in the hearts of ordinary Americans who understood that freedom wasn't free. There's something else, Marcus continued, his voice gentle but clear. The honor guard, and I will remain with Elena every moment until the funeral. She will never be alone. This is our promise, our duty, and our privilege. Your daughter is a hero, and heroes are never forgotten. The family spent the next hour with Elena's casket in a private room the airline had provided. Marcus and the honor guard stood watch outside, maintaining their vigil. Airport operations gradually returned to normal, but something had changed in the atmosphere. Employees moved with a different awareness. Passengers spoke in softer tones. The sacred had touched the ordinary, leaving its mark. When it came time to move to the funeral home, the TSA officer appeared again. Sergeant, we've coordinated with local law enforcement. Every overpass between here and the funeral home will be covered. Fire departments, police, citizens, they're all waiting to pay respects. Indeed, as the procession left the airport, the route became a ribbon of honor. Fire trucks extended their ladders, massive American flags hanging between them. Police officers saluted from overpasses. Citizens lined the streets, hands over hearts. Construction workers stopped their machines. Office workers crowded windows. At one overpass, a group of elementary school children held handmade signs. Thank you, Elena, read one in crayon. Our hero, proclaimed another. Their teacher stood behind them, explaining the meaning of sacrifice to young minds, trying to understand why everyone was so sad and proud at the same time. Marcus rode in the hearse with Elena, maintaining his watch. Through the window, he saw America at its best, not divided by politics or differences, but united in grief and gratitude. Every stopped car, every saluting officer, every flag at half-staff told the same story. We remember our heroes. The funeral home director, a veteran himself, met them with unusual formality. He had prepared the largest viewing room, anticipating crowds. Word had spread through social media about the airport tribute, and the community was mobilizing to ensure Elena received the honor she deserved. Over the next 3 days, Marcus and rotating teams of honor guards maintained their vigil. They stood in shifts, perfectly still, white gloves clasped, eyes forward. The viewing room became a pilgrimage site. Veterans from every conflict since World War II came to pay respects. Gold Star families understood the grief. Active duty soldiers, some who had served with Elena, traveled from across the country. The most poignant moments came from unexpected visitors. The janitor from Elena's high school brought her yearbook, showing Marcus pictures of Elena in the drama club, playing soccer, laughing with friends. She always said good morning, he explained. Every day, for 4 years. Even when other kids ignored me, Elena said good morning. A woman appeared with a service dog, explaining that she was one of the soldiers Elena had saved. She had lost her leg in the explosion, but lived because Elena's body absorbed most of the blast. She stood before the casket for nearly an hour, her hand on the flag, whispering words only Elena could hear. The little girl from the airport appeared with her mother on the second day. They had driven 2 hours after seeing news coverage. The child carried a drawing she had made, stick figures holding hands around an American flag, with an angel watching over them. So she won't be lonely in heaven, the girl explained to Marcus, who solemnly promised to ensure the drawing stayed with Elena. On the morning of the funeral, something remarkable happened. The airline pilots' union had coordinated a missing man formation flyover. As the funeral procession made its way to Arlington National Cemetery, 4 aircraft passed overhead, one peeling away skyward in the traditional symbol of a fallen aviator. Though Elena had been a soldier, not a pilot, the aviation community insisted on this tribute to the hero who had passed through their domain. The ceremony at Arlington was attended by thousands. The Secretary of the Army presented the Medal of Honor to Elena's parents. The 3rd Infantry Regiment provided full military honors. The rifle volleys echoed across the sacred grounds where America's heroes rest. Taps played, its mournful notes carrying on the wind, reaching rows upon rows of white headstones standing like eternal sentinels. Marcus, who had seen countless burials at Arlington, found this one particularly moving. Perhaps it was the spontaneous airport tribute that had shown him how deeply Americans still cared. Perhaps it was Elena's youth, her smile and the photographs her family shared, her dreams cut short by heroic choice. As the flag was folded with precision and presented to Maria Rodriguez, the Gold Star mother clutched it along with the small parade flag from the airport child. 2 flags, one representing the nation's official gratitude, the other the innocent thankfulness of a child who understood that someone's sister had died to keep her safe. After the ceremony, as crowds dispersed, Marcus noticed the TSA officer from the airport among the attendees. The man approached, still in his uniform, having taken leave to attend. "I needed to be here," he explained simply. "What happened at the airport? I worked there 15 years. Never seen anything like it. But it felt right, you know? It felt like what America should be." Marcus nodded, understanding completely. In an age of division and discord, Elena's journey home had united strangers in common purpose. The airport tribute hadn't been orchestrated or mandated. It arose spontaneously from hearts that recognized sacrifice and chose to honor it. As the sun set over Arlington, Marcus stood one final watch at Elena's grave. Tomorrow, he would return to his post at the tomb of the unknown soldier, resuming the endless vigil. But tonight belonged to Elena Rodriguez, the 22-year-old daughter, sister, and soldier who had given everything for her brothers and sisters in arms. The airport child's drawing had been placed in Elena's casket, along with letters from the soldiers she saved, her high school drama club photo, and countless other mementos from a life fully lived, though far too brief. These tokens of love and remembrance would rest with her forever in the hallowed grounds of Arlington. In the days that followed, the airport implemented a new protocol. Whenever a fallen hero passed through, operations would pause. The spontaneous tribute for Elena became the standard, ensuring that no soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine would make their final journey home unnoticed or unhonored. Marcus returned to his duties at the tomb, where he stood watch over the unknown soldiers from America's wars. But now, when he walked the 21 steps, turned, and paused for 21 seconds, he thought not just of the unknown, but of the known, of Elena Rodriguez, whose sacrifice had reminded a nation of what service meant. The TSA officer who had started the airport tribute found himself changed by the experience. He began volunteering with veteran organizations, sharing the story of Elena's homecoming, inspiring others to remember and honor those who serve. The ripples of that moment in the terminal spread outward, touching lives in ways both seen and unseen. Elena's family established a scholarship in her name at her high school, ensuring that other young people with dreams of service would have opportunities she had fought to protect. Each recipient learned not just about Elena's final act of heroism, but about her life, her laughter, her dreams, her love for bad action movies and good Mexican food, her terrible singing voice that never stopped her from belting out songs with her squad. A year later, on the anniversary of Elena's death, something unexpected happened at the airport. Without any formal organization, people began gathering in the terminal where the tribute had taken place. Airport workers, travelers who had been there that day, the little girl with her flag, now a year older but still clutching a small flag for the soldier lady. They stood in silent tribute for several minutes, remembering not just Elena, but all those who had made similar sacrifices. It became an annual tradition, a moment when the bustle of modern life paused to remember that freedom requires guardians willing to pay its ultimate price. Marcus attended when his duties permitted, standing among civilians rather than apart from them. The distinction between military and civilian blurred in these moments, replaced by a shared understanding of loss and gratitude. The tomb guard, trained to be stone-faced and separate, found common ground with TSA agents, janitors, pilots, and passengers. The story of Elena's homecoming spread beyond the airport, beyond the city. Other airports began implementing similar protocols. The simple act of stopping, of bearing witness, of showing respect became a movement, not mandated by law or regulation, but arising from human hearts that recognized the debt owed to those who serve. In her death, Elena Rodriguez accomplished something perhaps even greater than saving 6 lives in combat. She reminded a nation that beneath political divisions and daily distractions lay a bedrock of shared values. She proved that Americans, when confronted with genuine sacrifice, still knew how to unite in gratitude and grief. The tomb guard badge that Marcus wore carried the inscription "Eternal Vigilance." That vigilance extended beyond the marble tomb to every flag-draped casket returning home. It lived in the hearts of TSA agents who called for moments of silence, in children who offered tiny flags, in communities that lined streets to say goodbye to heroes they had never met but would never forget. As years passed, and the immediate pain of loss softened into cherished memory, Elena's story became legend at the airport. New employees heard about the day. Everything stopped for a fallen soldier. They learned that their workplace had been sanctified by sacrifice, that between gates 23 and 47, something holy had occurred. The conference room where Elena's family had waited was quietly maintained as a place of reflection. A small plaque appeared, unauthorized, but never removed, reading simply, "In memory of all who passed through these doors on their final journey home. Your sacrifice is not forgotten." Marcus eventually retired from active duty, but remained connected to the 3rd Infantry Regiment. He would tell Elena's story to new tomb guards, reminding them that their vigil extended beyond the unknown to encompass all who had given their lives in service. The spontaneous airport tribute became part of the regiment's oral history, a reminder that their sacred duty resonated with civilians who might never wear a uniform but understood its cost. The Rodriguez family found comfort in knowing that Elena's death had meaning beyond the battlefield. Maria would sometimes visit the airport, sitting quietly in the terminal, watching travelers rush past. Occasionally, someone would recognize her, approach respectfully, and share how the story of Elena's homecoming had affected them. "Your daughter changed how we see things," one airline employee told her. "Now when we see a uniform, we remember. We pay attention. We say thank you." These small recognitions became Elena's living memorial, more enduring than stone monuments or bronze plaques. Every pause to acknowledge service, every moment of gratitude expressed to those in uniform, every child taught about sacrifice and honor carried forward Elena's legacy. The little girl who had offered her flag grew older, but never forgot the soldier lady. Years later, as a young woman, she would choose a career in public service, inspired by a moment in an airport when she learned that heroes were real and that ordinary people could honor them in simple but profound ways. The pilots who had arranged the flyover made it a tradition, coordinating aerial tributes for fallen service members whenever possible. The missing man formation became a familiar sight over the region, each one a reminder that some gave everything so others could live free. In the end, what started as a routine escort duty transformed into something larger. Marcus Thompson, trained to be the perfect soldier, discovered that perfection sometimes meant allowing humanity to show through military bearing. The TSA officer, hardened by years of dealing with frustrated travelers, found purpose in creating moments of sacred pause in secular spaces. Elena Rodriguez, who had dreamed of being a teacher after her military service, became one in death. She taught a nation that heroes still walked among them, that sacrifice still mattered, that stopping to honor the fallen was not just appropriate, but essential to maintaining the soul of a democracy. Her grave at Arlington became a gathering place, not just for family, but for the soldiers she saved, their families, and strangers who had heard the story. The small parade flag from the airport child was eventually preserved and displayed at the unit's headquarters, a reminder that the smallest gestures of gratitude carry immense weight. The airport terminal where it all happened bears no official marker, but those who work there know. They know that between the coffee shop and Gate 47, America remembered itself. They know that on ordinary tile floors, something extraordinary occurred. They know that when duty calls for honoring the fallen, there is no such thing as too much respect, too much gratitude, or too much love for those who gave everything. As Marcus would tell young soldiers years later, standing before Elena's headstone, she taught us that coming home matters as much as how we serve. She showed us that civilians and soldiers aren't separate tribes, but one people bound by shared loss and common gratitude. She proved that America's heart still beats strong when called upon to honor its best. The spontaneous tribute at the airport became more than just a moment in time. It became a reminder that in a democracy, civilians and soldiers share the burden of freedom. Each honors it differently, one through service, the other through recognition of that service. But when they come together, as they did for Elena Rodriguez, something transcendent occurs. In the quiet moments at the tomb of the unknown soldier, when tourists have gone and only the guard remains, Marcus would think about all the known soldiers who deserved equal honor. He would remember Elena's smile and the photos her mother shared, the tears of the TSA officer, the small flag from a child's grateful heart. The 21 steps he walked represented more than just honor for the unknown. They embodied a nation's promise to remember all who served, all who sacrificed, all who came home beneath flags rather than walking beside them. Each measured step carried the weight of Elena's story and thousands like hers. Years have passed since that morning at Reagan National Airport. The TSA officer has retired, but continues to volunteer, ensuring no fallen hero passes through unnoticed. The little girl is now in college, studying to become a teacher like Elena had hoped to be. Marcus serves as a mentor to young soldiers, teaching them about duty, honor, and the sacred trust between those who serve and those they protect. The conference room where the Rodriguez family waited has seen many such meetings, each one a reminder of the cost of freedom. The airport staff, trained in efficiency and schedules, have learned that some things matter more than on-time departures. They have discovered that in pausing to honor the fallen, they honor the best of themselves. Elena Rodriguez rests in Section 60 at Arlington, surrounded by her generation of warriors. Her headstone bears her name, rank, and dates of service. But her true monument lives in every spontaneous gesture of respect, every moment of silence, every child who learns that heroes are real and that ordinary people can honor them in extraordinary ways. The story of her homecoming continues to ripple outward, touching lives in ways both profound and simple. It reminds us that in an age of division, we can still unite in gratitude. It proves that respect for sacrifice transcends politics, race, religion, and all the other barriers we construct. It demonstrates that America, at its core, remains a nation that honors its heroes. When new honor guards escort fallen service members through airports across the country, they often hear the story of Elena and Marcus, of the TSA officer who called for silence, of the crowds who lined the concourse in spontaneous tribute. It has become a standard to aspire to, a reminder that their duty extends beyond protocol to touch human hearts. In the end, Elena Rodriguez achieved in death what she had lived for in life, bringing people together, inspiring others to be their best selves, protecting those who could not protect themselves. Her final journey home became not just a funeral procession, but a teaching moment for a nation that needed to remember why some things are worth dying for, and why all things worth dying for are worth living to honor. The terminal at Reagan National Airport carries on its daily business, millions passing through each year. But for those who know the story, who were there that morning or have heard the tale passed down, it remains sacred ground. Here, between gates and shops, between arrivals and departures, America paused to say goodbye to one of its finest, and in doing so, rediscovered its soul. Marcus Thompson continues to visit Elena's grave, maintaining an informal watch long after his official duties ended. He brings small flags left by visitors at the tomb, creating a bridge between the unknown and the known. He reads letters from the soldiers Elena saved, now living full lives because of her sacrifice. The airport tribute spawned a movement of consciousness, a reminder that freedom requires both those willing to defend it and those willing to honor that defense. It proved that patriotism isn't just flag-waving at parades, but showing up when grief demands witness, when sacrifice requires acknowledgement, when heroes make their final journey home. Elena's parents established not just scholarships, but a foundation supporting Gold Star families. They transformed their grief into action, ensuring that other families walking this difficult path would find support and understanding. Maria Rodriguez became a voice for military families, sharing Elena's story not for sympathy, but to build bridges between civilian and military communities. The soldiers Elena saved went on to serve with distinction, each carrying the weight and inspiration of her sacrifice. They named their children after her, dedicated their achievements to her memory, lived lives worthy of the gift she had given them. At military balls and unit gatherings, they told her story, ensuring that future generations understood the price of freedom. As America continues to face challenges both foreign and domestic, the lesson of that morning at Reagan National Airport remains relevant. It reminds us that beneath the surface of daily life flows a deeper current of shared values and mutual respect. It proves that when called upon, Americans can still rise above differences to honor what truly matters. The simple act of stopping to pay respects became a statement of national character. The spontaneous honor guard of civilians showed that patriotism lives not in words, but in actions. The tears of strangers demonstrated that empathy transcends personal connection when confronted with ultimate sacrifice. Elena Rodriguez never sought fame or recognition. She was a young woman who joined the military to serve something greater than herself, who made a split-second decision to save her fellow soldiers, who paid the ultimate price for that decision. But in her death and the manner of her homecoming, she became a teacher to millions. She taught that heroes aren't just in movies or history books, but walking among us in uniform and civilian clothes alike. She proved that ordinary people can create extraordinary moments of grace. She demonstrated that a grateful nation is not an abstract concept, but real people taking time from their busy lives to say thank you. The legacy of that morning lives on in every airport that pauses for a fallen hero, every community that lines streets for funeral processions, every child who learns about service and sacrifice. It endures in the quiet moments when veterans see their service recognized, when Gold Star families know their loss is shared, when America remembers that freedom isn't free. Marcus Thompson, the tomb guard who escorted Elena home, often reflects on how one assignment changed his perspective. Trained to be separate, stoic, and perfect in military bearing, he discovered that true honor sometimes means allowing others to share in the sacred duty of remembrance. The civilians who filled that terminal weren't intruding on military protocol. They were participating in the democratic ideal that makes military service meaningful. The story ends where it began, with ordinary people doing extraordinary things. A TSA officer choosing compassion over regulation. Travelers setting aside their urgency to honor a stranger. a child offering a simple flag that carried the weight of a nation's gratitude. These moments, strung together like pearls of consciousness, created something beautiful from profound loss. Elena Rodriguez came home, not in silence, but surrounded by the love of a grateful nation. Her journey from battlefield to final rest became a masterclass in how democracy honors its defenders. She reminded America that every flag-draped casket carries a story, a family, dreams unfulfilled, and sacrifice beyond measure. In the years since, other fallen heroes have passed through that terminal, and countless others. Each time, the lesson of Elena's homecoming echoes: stop, honor, remember. Each pause in the busy flow of modern life reaffirms that some things matter more than schedules or convenience. Each spontaneous tribute proves that the American spirit of gratitude and recognition lives on. The final lesson Elena teaches is that heroism isn't limited to battlefield actions. It lives in TSA officers who call for moments of silence, in pilots who arrange flyovers, in children who offer flags, in communities that remember. It flourishes when ordinary citizens recognize that they too have a role in honoring those who serve. As the sun sets each evening over Arlington National Cemetery, the tomb guards begin another night of eternal vigilance. Among the thousands of white headstones stands Elena's, no different in appearance, but unique in the story it represents. Here lies not just a soldier, but a teacher, not just a hero, but an inspiration, not just an individual, but a symbol of what America can be when it remembers its best self. The airport where it all began continues its ceaseless operations. But in the hearts of those who were there, who participated in or heard about the tribute, something permanent has changed. They carry with them the knowledge that they were part of something larger, something that transcended the ordinary and touched the eternal. This is Elena's true monument, not stone or bronze, but living memory that inspires continued action. Every gesture of respect for those who serve, every moment taken to honor sacrifice, every child taught about the price of freedom adds another stone to this invisible memorial. In the end, when airport staff halted a tomb guard escorting a hero, what happened next was more than heartfelt. It was transformative. It reminded a nation of its capacity for unity, respect, and love. It proved that honoring the fallen isn't just military duty, but a civilian responsibility. It demonstrated that in respecting those who gave everything, we discover the best of ourselves. Elena Rodriguez achieved her dream of becoming a teacher, just not in the way she had planned. Through her sacrifice and the manner of her homecoming, she taught millions about honor, duty, and the unbreakable bond between those who serve and those they protect. Her lesson continues every time America pauses to remember, every time strangers unite in grief and gratitude, every time a flag-draped casket comes home to a nation that refuses to forget. The story of that morning at Reagan National Airport will be told for generations. Not as mere history, but as instruction, not as past event, but as present challenge. It asks each American, when duty calls for honor, will you stop? When sacrifice demands recognition, will you bear witness? When heroes come home for the final time, will you ensure they do not pass unnoticed? Elena Rodriguez and Marcus Thompson, the TSA officer, and the crowds who gathered, the child with her flag, and all who participated, together they wrote a chapter in America's ongoing story. It's a chapter about remembering what matters, honoring what's sacred, and proving that a grateful nation is not just words, but actions taken by ordinary people who choose to do extraordinary things. As long as this story is told, as long as airports pause and communities gather, as long as children learn that heroes are real and sacrifice has meaning, Elena Rodriguez continues her service. She stands eternal watch not from a marble tomb, but from the hearts of Americans who refuse to forget. She reminds us that coming home matters, that final honors are sacred, and that a nation's true strength lies not in its military might, but in its capacity to love and honor those who serve. This is the legacy of that morning, when airport staff halted a tomb guard escorting a hero. This is what happens when America remembers itself. This is the power of ordinary people choosing to create extraordinary moments of grace. This is Elena's final gift, teaching a nation that honoring the fallen isn't just duty but privilege, not just protocol but love, not just ending but beginning of eternal remembrance.